Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast. Today we're diving into something I bet you've never thought much about.
I bet you're right about that.
Envelopes.
Yeah, pretty ordinary, right?
But you know what?
What?
Their story is way more interesting than just holding our bills and letters.
Oh, absolutely. We're so used to them, but the journey of the envelope is full of surprises.
Okay, so we all know about clay tablets, but
Yeah.
clay envelopes.
Exactly.
What did those even look like?
Picture this little hollow clay balls, almost like spheres.
Huh.
They held these ancient financial tokens, like old school IOUs.
Wow. So like
Yeah.
ancient Mesopotamian identity theft protection.
You got it. Even way back then, people wanted to protect their valuables and make sure transactions were safe.
That's wild.
Yeah.
But okay, how did we get from clay balls to the paper envelopes we stick stamps on today?
That's where ancient China comes in.
Okay.
Around the 2nd century BC, they started using paper envelopes.
Really?
Yeah, mainly for gifts of money.
Interesting.
Even the imperial court used them.
So wait, those red envelopes you see today, like in Chinese New Year,
Mm-hmm.
those have been around for centuries.
That's right. Traditions like that are amazing.
That is amazing. But here's a thought. While China was using paper,
Yeah,
the West was doing things totally different.
totally.
So they weren't using envelopes at all. Like, how are they sending letters then?
Get this, they had these super intricate letter locking techniques,
Wow.
almost like origami to fold and seal their letters for security.
You're kidding.
Nope. Imagine having to fold your letter into this complex pattern just to keep it closed.
That sounds like a lot more work than licking an envelope.
For sure.
So when did the West finally catch on to this whole paper envelope thing?
Well, it took a while, believe it or not.
I believe it.
The first envelope-making machine wasn't patented until 1840 in the UK.
Wow.
This was huge because it meant envelopes could finally be made in mass quantities, making them affordable and easy to get.
Okay, so machines are cranking these things out. But were they like the rectangular ones we see everywhere today?
Actually, no. This is where things get fun.
Okay.
The early ones were diamond-shaped. It all ties in with Rowland Hill and his penny post system.
Wait, diamond-shaped?
Yep.
Like why?
So these diamond envelopes got nicknamed Mulready envelopes.
Already?
Yeah, after the artist who designed them.
Okay.
They were meant to be folded a certain way and then sealed with the new postage stamp.
So it's like a whole new system.
Exactly.
Huh, were they a big hit?
Not really.
Huh.
People found the design too complicated and impractical, and they ended up being withdrawn because of all the public ridicule.
What, really?
Oh yeah, there were cartoons and satires poking fun at them.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
So even back then, public opinion could make or break a design.
For sure. It just goes to show even something as basic as an envelope could spark controversy.
That is amazing. It really shows that even everyday things can have a big impact.
Absolutely. And you know what? This whole Mulready debacle actually paved the way for our rectangular envelopes.
Oh, wow. So they were born out of that controversy.
Exactly.
So basically, we have public feedback and the need for something easier to think for our rectangular envelopes.
You got it.
Amazing. Then, of course, they just kept evolving with things like, pre-gummed flaps.
Right. No more messing with paste or wax seals.
That's definitely a game changer.
Yeah.
But there's still so much more to uncover about envelopes.
There is.
Before we go further, though, quick reminder to all our listeners to hit that subscribe button.
Don't miss out.
You won't want to miss any of our future deep dives here on Tell Me More.
So much more to come.
Now, where were we? Ah, yes, the evolution of the envelope. We talked about those early diamond-shaped ones.
Right.
What about the tons of different sizes we have today? You've got everything from tiny gift card envelopes to giant ones for posters.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
It is. I've always wondered, why are there so many different sizes? Is there like a secret code I'm missing?
There's definitely a method to the madness.
Okay.
It all comes down to accommodating different paper sizes and types, and even different cultural practices.
Oh, interesting.
So you have your international standard sizes, North American sizes, and then unique sizes in places like China and Japan.
So it's like a global envelope language.
Yeah.
But before we get lost in all the different sizes, let's talk about a couple of specific types.
Sure.
Remember those window envelopes? The ones with the little plastic window that shows your address?
Ah, yes. Those are ingenious.
They are. But I've always wondered about those windows and recycling.
Right.
Is there a way to recycle those envelopes without the plastic ending up in a landfill?
That's a great question, and one a lot of people are thinking about as we become more eco-conscious.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider.
Absolutely.
So what about those security envelopes? The ones with all those crazy patterns inside?
Oh, yeah. Those make you feel like you're handling top secret stuff.
I know. Do those patterns actually do anything, or are they just for show?
Oh, no. They have a purpose. They're designed to make it super hard for people to read through the envelope.
Oh, so it's like a built-in privacy shield. That makes sense for like bank statements and stuff.
Exactly. Sensitive information needs that extra layer of protection.
It's really incredible how much thought goes into something as simple as an envelope.
It really is.
They've come such a long way from those clay spheres.
Such a long way.
But speaking of security, did you know the U.S. federal government uses a special type of envelope for their interoffice mail?
They do?
Yeah, they're called Holy Joe, or sometimes shotgun envelopes.
Huh. Interesting names.
I know.
What are they like?
Well, they have all these holes punched through them.
Really?
Yep.
What's the point of that?
It's all about transparency and security.
How so?
The holes let people see that the envelope only has official documents. No classified stuff.
Oh, so it's like a low-tech way to prevent leaks.
Exactly.
That's pretty clever.
It is. So basically, when you really think about it, envelopes have always been about keeping information safe.
You're absolutely right.
From those ancient financial tokens in Mesopotamia to government documents today.
That need for security has been there all along.
Absolutely. It's a common thread throughout the whole evolution of the envelope.
It really is fascinating.
It is. But I think it's time to give our listeners a little break to process all this information.
Sounds good.
We'll be back in a jiffy to keep diving into the world of envelopes.
Stick around. There's so much more to explore.
There is. We'll be back in a flash.
It's amazing how that need for security has always been like a part of the envelope story.
It really has.
But speaking of stories, do you know that during the Civil War,
Yeah.
Confederate soldiers would sometimes use wallpaper
Walker.
as envelopes?
Really?
Yeah, when they ran out of supplies.
Wow, that's some serious outside-the-box thinking.
Or maybe outside the envelope.
Huh, exactly.
It really shows you how adaptable people can be, especially when times are tough.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, what stories will our modern envelopes tell future generations?
That's a great question.
But before we go too far into the future,
Yeah.
we still have more to uncover about envelopes today. We were talking about those security envelopes with the crazy patterns inside.
Oh, yeah, those are cool.
I've always been curious about how they actually work.
Well, those patterns you see, they're not just random.
Okay.
They're actually strategically placed to create like a visual barrier to make it really hard to read through the envelope without opening it.
So it's like a built-in privacy shield.
You got it.
That makes sense for things like bank statements and legal documents.
Exactly.
But speaking of different types of envelopes, have you ever noticed how many different sizes there are?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a whole secret language.
Well, there is a method to the madness, I promise.
I hope so.
Envelope sizes aren't random,
Okay.
They're designed to fit different paper sizes and types so everything stays snug and secure.
So it's all about finding the perfect match.
Exactly.
But I have to admit, I'm still a little confused about all the different categories. You've got international standards, North American sizes, and then unique sizes in China and Japan. It's a lot to keep track of.
It can definitely seem overwhelming at first,
Yeah.
but once you understand the logic behind it, it all starts to make sense.
Okay.
For example, those international standard sizes, like the C series,
Yeah.
they're based on specific dimensions that are made to work with common paper formats around the world.
So it's all about making sure things are compatible across different countries and cultures.
Precisely.
That's pretty smart.
And then you have your North American sizes.
Right.
Those have evolved over time to meet the needs of businesses and people here in the U.S. and Canada.
And of course, we can't forget about those unique envelope sizes in China and Japan.
Oh, absolutely.
They often reflect like cultural practices and traditions,
Yeah.
which just adds another layer of complexity to the world of envelopes.
Exactly. The good example is in Japan.
Okay.
They have these long, elegant envelopes called chuke. Yeah, they're traditionally used for formal events and important documents.
Huh. Interesting.
It just shows that envelopes can be more than just practical. They can be expressions of culture, too.
That's a great point. It's amazing how much detail goes into something as seemingly simple as an envelope.
It is.
We've talked about security envelopes, size variations, and even those historical examples like the wallpaper envelopes from the Civil War.
Right, right.
But there's one type we haven't really talked about in detail yet.
Which one?
Window envelopes.
Ah, yes. Those are interesting.
They really are. They're both functional and a little bit controversial.
How so?
Well, those little plastic windows can be a bit polarizing.
You mean some people find them creepy?
Maybe a little. It's like they're staring into your soul.
Huh.
But jokes aside, they do serve a purpose.
Oh, absolutely. They let you see the address on the letter inside without having to write it twice.
Right. It saves time and effort for everyone.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
But I've always wondered about those plastic windows and recycling.
That's a good question.
Are they even recyclable?
Well, it depends on the type of plastic they use for the window.
Oh, okay.
And it also depends on what recycling facilities are available in your area.
So there's no easy answer.
Not really.
It's definitely something to be aware of.
Absolutely. As we all try to be more eco-conscious, it's important to think about the sustainability of everything we use.
That's true even for something as small as an envelope.
Exactly. And speaking of sustainability, there are actually companies out there working on eco-friendly envelopes.
Really?
Yeah, things like envelopes made from recycled materials or even plant-based plastics that can biodegrade.
That's fantastic. It's great to see those kinds of innovations happening.
It is.
It reminds us that even small choices like picking an eco-friendly envelope can make a difference.
Absolutely. Every little bit helps.
So what about those digital alternatives to paper envelopes?
Right.
Do you think those could become the norm someday?
I think they definitely have their place, especially for things like routine transactions and communication, electronic bills, online invitations, e-signatures. Those are all fantastic ways to reduce our reliance on paper.
Yeah, and that's good for the environment.
Exactly. But, there's still something special about a physical letter, a handwritten note.
Absolutely.
You just can't replicate that feeling digitally.
It's a personal touch.
Yeah.
Something that goes beyond just words on a screen.
I couldn't agree more, and I think as long as people value those personal touches, appreciate letter writing and the joy of getting a real letter in the mail,
Yeah.
envelopes will always have a place in our world.
So maybe the future of the envelope isn't about being replaced. It's more about finding a balance between the digital and the physical.
I think you're right. It's about using both in a way that makes sense.
Right, and acknowledging that they both have their strengths.
Absolutely. Finding that balance can make our communication richer and more meaningful.
I love that.
I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from the ancient history of envelopes to their future in a digital world.
We really have.
Yeah.
We've really gone through, like, the whole history of the envelope, right?
We have.
From those ancient clay spheres to those diamond-shaped ones that didn't quite work out.
Mulready envelopes, yeah.
And even those wallpaper envelopes from the Civil War.
Right.
It's been fascinating.
It has.
But now we're kind of standing at the edge of this digital age, wondering,
Yeah.
what happens to the envelope now?
It's a big question. I mean, on the one hand, we have the speed and ease of emails and texts and doing everything online.
Right.
But then there's that special something about getting a real letter,
Absolutely. Like, there's just this weight, a sense of anticipation when you open a physical letter that you don't get with an email.
I know what you mean. It's like you're getting a little gift.
Yeah. It's like someone took the time to really put their thoughts and feelings into something tangible.
Exactly. And I think that's something that people will always value,
I think so, too.
no matter how advanced technology gets.
Okay, but let's be a little devil's advocate here.
Eh.
With more and more communication happening online,
Yeah.
could envelopes just become, a thing of the past?
It's possible, but I think it's more likely that they'll change and adapt. Yeah, like they've always done.
You're right. I mean, they've survived all kinds of changes over the centuries,
Absolutely.
from the printing press to the internet.
Right. So who's to say they can't adapt to this digital age as well?
Good point. And, it's not just about communication anymore.
That's true.
Envelopes are also really important for protecting and sending physical stuff.
Oh, yeah, like important documents, legal contracts, medical records, even small gifts.
Exactly. All those things still need a safe and reliable way to get where they need to go.
Absolutely. And digital communication can't really handle that part.
That's true. So as long as there's a need to physically send things,
Yeah.
envelopes are going to stick around.
I think so.
But as we move deeper into this digital world,
Yeah.
we do have to think about the environmental impact of using so many envelopes.
You're right.
We talked about the recycling challenges with those window envelopes.
Yeah,
And just making paper in the first place has environmental consequences.
it does.
So it's encouraging that some companies are coming up with eco-friendly solutions like using recycled materials or plant-based plastics.
Absolutely. That's a really positive step.
It is. It shows that even small choices like picking an eco-friendly envelope can make a difference.
It all adds up.
So what about those digital alternatives? Like e-bills and online invitations.
You're right.
Could those become the standard someday?
I think they have a big role to play, especially for those everyday communications and transactions.
Yeah, for sure.
Using e-bills, online invitations, e-signatures, it all helps cut down on how much paper we use.
And that's good for the planet.
Definitely. But there's still something about a physical letter, you
Oh,
know?
yeah. There's just something special about a handwritten note that you just can't get digitally.
It's true.
It's personal, it's thoughtful.
And I think as long as people appreciate that, as long as they enjoy writing letters and getting those real letters in the mail envelopes, we'll always have a place in our hearts
I think you're right.
and in our world.
So maybe the future of the envelope isn't about one replacing the other.
Uh-huh.
It's about finding that balance between the digital and the physical.
I think you're right. It's about using both in a way that makes sense.
Exactly. And realizing that they both have their own special qualities.
It's about finding the balance that works for you and for the planet.
Beautifully said.
Mm.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have, from ancient times to the future.
We've talked about how envelopes have changed and all the different types,
All the challenges and opportunities.
their impact on society and the environment, and even their artistic side.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. We hope our listeners have gained a new appreciation for this, often overlooked but surprisingly fascinating object.
I hope so.
So the next time you pick up an envelope,
Yeah.
take a moment to really think about its journey, its purpose, and what it might become.
It's more than just a piece of paper.
It really is. It's a way we connect with each other.
It reflects our values.
And it's a small but lasting part of our shared human story.
That's a great way to put it. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the world of envelopes.
Thank you for joining us on Tell Me More Stories Told Us podcast. We'll be back soon with another exciting deep dive.
Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned.
Until then, keep those letters coming.